This is Olly. He grew his testimonial tool from $0 to $850,000 annual recurring revenue in just 3 years. But the crazy part is, he first found the opportunity by roasting landing pages.
So I made about $300,000 doing that.
From there, he was ready to build a product. But instead of starting from scratch, he took an easier approach and just found an existing product and made it better.
We met on Twitter. He was building in public the very first version of the product. I reached out to him and I said, look, this is my vision for what this product can do. And he said, yeah, let's do it. Let's start shipping. And from there, we built it into Senja, which is now at about 850,000 ARR. We've just finished up our 3rd year.
Olly has tried hundreds of different marketing experiments and now has a system in place to double down on what really works.
It took 11 months to get to 1,000 MRR, and now we're adding about 1,000 or 800 net MRR a week. If we see something work, we try and 10x it every single time.
In this video, you'll learn exactly how Olly made $300,000 roasting landing pages in just 2 years, the exact experiment-driven framework to 10x what really works quickly, and how to differentiate a copycat product that already exists but coming up with ways to make it better. Let's dive in. Olly, what is your business and how did you start it?
So the business is called Senja. It's a platform for collecting proof from your customers. And I started it about 3 years ago when I found someone building it on Twitter and reached out to him and said, let's collaborate.
And what were you doing up until that point?
So before Senja, I had a productized service called Roast My Landing Page, and I was professionally roasting people's websites.
You've made money a lot in very different ways online. Can you talk about some of the unique ways, and specifically what is the roasting people's websites?
Roast My Landing Page was a service where people would come to the site, they would book me, and they would pay $350 up front, and I would film a Loom video going through their website and telling them how to turn more visitors into customers. So I made about $300,000 doing that, charging about $300, so 1,000 roasts, and it was a lot of fun. I really liked how I was able to give people sort of quick wins that they could implement to turn more visitors into customers. And I liked that it was very specific what they got. So they got this 10, 15-minute video, and then we were done.
Over what time period?
Normally, they would get the video back within hours, maybe a couple of days.
How about, so 300K?
For the 300K. So that was a 2-year period of busier weeks and less busy weeks, depending on what else was going on in my life.
And somebody listening to this, like 300K in 2 years roasting, doing one single thing, what is your takeaway there?
I mean, there's lots of people doing productized businesses and services. I think luckily I was able to really push this and break through and create a lot of awareness for it. I think you've just got to stay dialed in, get really good at what you're doing, what you're offering. And the other thing is if you're amazing at it, you're going to create the advocacy. So I think what I saw was that most of my customers came from word of mouth. And I had a really nice cycle of like sending that roast over and then asking for the testimonial, which then I would use to drive more sales and more advocacy. So basically, if you're not willing to be the best at something, I wouldn't spend a lot of time building a productized service around it. If it's something you really care about and you can put something better into the world than other people, it's an amazing business model.
And you played around with the pricing, right? You didn't start at 300.
Yeah. Well, the first ones were free. So I did that to collect feedback and testimonials. And then I think it went up to about $50, then $200. I think at one point it was about $600. And I was like, okay, I might be pricing people out. And I came back to $350. Of course, for 15 minutes, that's a lot of money, but actually, if you can even have a small uplift on your landing page conversion, it's probably worth 100 times that. It does depend on the size of the business and how much they're spending on driving people to those landing pages. But traditionally, it was a no-brainer if you could lift conversion.
Yeah, and so you made 300K in 2 years doing Roast My Landing Page, and then what?
And then I was thinking, okay, I was also doing some fractional marketing work, and I was thinking, I want to build my own thing, and I want to build something that I can craft, something that gets better each day. So the roasts did get better over time, but it's basically the same service over and over and over. And what I wanted to do was build something that was kind of putting something into the world that I had built and was beautiful. And I was aware of various people building in public, and I saw someone working on a testimonial tool called Wilson, my co-founder, soon to be ex-co-founder. And basically I reached out to him and said, let's build something, let's create it. So he had just put a few things out there. I don't think he had any customers at that point. And I said, look, this is my vision for what this product can do. And he said, yeah, let's do it. So we don't have a formal founder agreement. We just have an email saying we own the company 50-50, let's start shipping. And from there, we built it into Senja, which is now at about 850,000 ARR. We've just finished up our third year.
Wow. So 850K ARR in just 3 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, specifically online entrepreneurs, think they need this brand new idea, something never thought of before. What would you say to that person?
Senja's a copycat. So there's someone out there called Damon Chen who was also building a testimonial tool product in public. And Wilson saw it, I'd seen it, we liked it, and we were like, okay, there's something interesting here. But what we focused on, or certainly our early conversations were like, what can we do over and above what that product does? How can we bring something into the market where we have a unique angle on it? And for us, that was focusing on the ability to share those testimonials. So that platform, testimonial.2, basically has one or two ways to share. We came in, we launched with 15 or 20 different widgets that you can customize and place throughout your funnel. You can share them as images, you can share them as videos, you can remix them. So our view was that the way to use social proof is to make more money by sharing it to answer objections and increase conversion.
Gotcha. And so what we're going to walk through here is high-level strategy that you used in your own business, as well as some of the tactics. So somebody watching this video can not only understand and get ideas for specific tactics, but also have the strategy to first get to 1K MRR, 10K, and then maybe beyond that from there. Let's start back with your story of growing Senja. How long did it take you to get, just to 1K MRR?
A long time. It took 11 months to get to 1,000 MRR, and now we're adding about 1,000 or 800 net MRR a week. So this is kind of the amazing thing about SaaS and compounding marketing. It was a real struggle emotionally and financially to get to that first 1,000, almost a year.
You have an interesting take on experimental marketing. Can you walk through that first year as you're trying different experiments? Like, how would you instruct somebody just starting out to get the same result in their business?
So we just tried everything. The first 11 months or the first 6 months were just leveraging every community and connection we had to talk about Senja. So what I mean by that is we were on Reddit, we were on Indie Hackers, we were emailing friends, we were emailing ex-colleagues, friends of friends, we were building in public. We were just doing anything we could to get in front of people. So I would say that was like just a very hustly kind of just whatever we can do. If I was to go again, I would highly recommend really dialing into one buyer in a very niche way. So I'm not talking about like SaaS founder, but really getting into it and specifically trying to get in front of those people. But either way, we struggled our way through to the 1,000 MRR, but we started to see that the growth and the speed of growth would increase from that point.
And you found this for your business. Who did you focus in on for your ICP?
Yeah, so eventually we decided to focus on professional creators, people who have courses, people who want to collect a lot of proof, and they have funnels, so they're using it in lots of different spaces. And that came out of a conversation with Wes Bush where we really wanted to dial into our product-led growth and really into a specific buyer. And that means changing up how your product or how you talk about your product, where you show up online, how you market it. But generally, we saw much higher advocacy in that space. We found it easier to convert those people from free to paid. And yeah, once we started dialing into one particular buyer, we saw meaningful growth.
And how would you explain what exactly product-led growth is?
For me, it's just the whole culture of like the product is moving people through the life cycle. So not only does the product, you've got an amazing landing page and that converts people. You've got incredible onboarding that activates people. You've got great retention emails and that drives people back. You've got great customer support and that's constantly fixing the UX and removing questions from the support inbox. So it's not just not having a demo. It's really at every point in the life cycle, the product, the team, and the culture is supporting unlocking customers and getting them to success, but without having salespeople on their backs, basically.
Say I were to shadow you for a week, what would stick out to me as interesting?
Okay, so we do have a 4-day work week. We don't have any recurring meetings or regular meetings in any form. We don't use Slack or any of that type of communication. Everything is tracked and managed through Linear. And also, I've worked with my co-founder for over 3 years now, and we've actually never met in person.
What do you mean you haven't met your co-founder?
We met on Twitter. He was building in public the very first version of the product. I reached out to him, and since then, we've just been building this business. I'm not actually an introvert in that sense, but there's just been lots of logistical reasons. So he's based in Nigeria. I'm nomadic. The timings haven't been quite right. When he's tried to travel, he hasn't been able to get a visa, or I've been on the other side of the planet.
You share a lot on Twitter. It's been interesting because one, I've learned a lot from you. And two, I feel like I have a little bit of a sense of where your company is today and where you're going. Sounds like you're parting ways with this co-founder, Wilson.
Yeah.
What's going on there and what's the new direction?
So me and Wilson have had an amazing working relationship, and I think we both are surprised at where we've got to in this business. It was very light and informal in the early days, and I think it's become a bigger beast than either of us expected. And at this stage, I think Wilson, who is 21, is very keen to kind of explore other ideas, other working dynamics, and just try new things. And I think for me, I see that there's an opportunity to take this business a bit further. So it's all very good-natured and we're very close and have a great working dynamic as well as friendship. But basically, I'm going to be buying him out. And the idea is that he will go and work on his new project, which I've seen and it's brilliant. And I will scale Senja until the point where I'm living in a mansion.
Nice. And that's next year.
Yeah, that's next year.
Yeah. Okay, great. And so we were all talking about that from 1 year to 2 year. You went from 1,000 to 20K MRR.
Yeah.
Which was kind of insane. Any other key sort of components of that phase that stick out?
Yeah, so I think that period was really dialing into that buyer persona, the course creator, the professional creator, and basically identifying things that were working in our marketing and starting to push them a little bit more. So at that point, we were doing some Google ads, we were doing some sponsorships, we were doing some affiliates, and we were doing some SEO. And we were starting to see, okay, these channels are actually ones that we can grow. We didn't know if we could scale them significantly, but we definitely knew we could get more customers from them. And that's what we did. It was still quite a hustly tone. And the plan for the upcoming year is to really strip back and focus on channels that we think we can meaningfully scale.
And so if someone's looking at your story and wanting to pull some of these insights into their own life or business, what was the specific customer? Yours was course creators.
Sure.
And then what did you do? Well, first you had to put a bunch of things out there, realize who it's for, who it's not for.
Yeah.
You found it's for course creators. And then how do you double down on that?
Yeah. So for example, we knew that if we had affiliates and they were people who had newsletters and email lists targeting course creators, that they could do a great job in promoting us. So we basically found people who educate those buyers and we reached out to them. So that was a very natural channel for us. We also made a lot of content marketing and assets that were relevant and would help these people be more successful so that they would then hear about Senja. We also reached out to various course creator platforms like Podia, Kit, which is more an email platform, but we partnered with them to launch integrations and that was quite good. It's true as well. It's all true. true, but it felt very true.
Let's keep this in.
Okay.
Keep this in. Continue.
Okay, so basically, once we were dialed into this persona, we did a lot of work in partnering with some of the other people in this space, people who had a similar buyer or audience to us. But generally, it was just about identifying opportunities and pushing them a little bit harder. In some cases, if we saw an opportunity, we would then bring in a fractional person to work on that. And again, that's something we want to do a lot more in the upcoming period.
And then at that point, that allows you to say, okay, we want to do more of this. We want to cut this.
Yeah.
When it gets to the point of this is clearly working, we ran the experiment, we want to do more of it. How do you find these experts then to bring in? And
so historically, it was really just gut instinct, which did not work for us at all. So there was a lot of like, oh, I could have a beer with this person, so I'll hire them. Now we have really strong criteria about who we hire or retain and what that looks like in terms of the working dynamic. So for example, they do have to use Linear. They cannot use Slack. No one is bigger than the process. You know, if they say, look, the way I want to do this is this, we say, no, this is how we report. This is how we cycle experimentation. If you're willing to work in this way, then come in and work with us. We also spend a lot more time asking for case studies, evidence of success. It's just a lot more, there's a lot more work going into who we work with so that it's less painful later on. I think in the early stages of the business, I was just shortcutting. I was like, you seem great. And then this felt very quick. It felt like we were moving quickly. Apart from 3 months later, the relationship would fall apart. We wouldn't have the results we wanted. So now we spend a lot more time in the early days. We have a structured list of questions we ask. And if they're willing to work like that and they've got a proven track record of delivering for businesses like Senja, we will hire them.
Right. And we polled our YouTube channel a couple days ago and found something interesting that around 85% of the viewers right now probably are what stage of their business they're at, and 85% were either they didn't have the business or they're just at 1K MRR. And so we've walked through almost your different levels of this game. And I think you'd also spent a lot of time at the beginning level figuring out what it is. And then now with AI and the ability to make products even easier these days, can you walk through, if you were starting from scratch, how you would approach getting your first 100 users?
If there was a system for getting your first 100 customers, then everyone would have their first 100 customers. There is no playbook. It basically is just trying a lot of different things. Something you can do to give you a bit of a head start in this is that you can go super niche with your buyer. So to elaborate on that a little bit, our buyer used to be someone based in the US who wants proof because they've got a business. And, you know, maybe they're in marketing or maybe they're a founder. And now it's something like a professional creator, full-time, based in the US, has multiple offers and products, uses Kit, Podia, or Circle, and likely is launching a new product in the next 6 months. So the level of specificity that you should have in this buyer persona is a lot higher than most people think. And what you want to do is find those people. And even if there's only 10 of them in the world, this is perfect. You work through those 10 and then expand out the buyer persona. So my big tip would be to really just get into who really, really needs this, who has no objections, who really feels the frustration, who's currently trying to do this but doing it in a way that's not very effective. That is where I would start. But if people are thinking, you know what, all I need to do is like run a couple of systems and blah, 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 and I'm going to get to 1,000, it's probably not going to happen. Actually, I would say 0 to 1,000 is harder than 1,000 to 20,000. 0 to 1 is the hardest. But if you're at $1,000, you've probably got something that is worth more experimentation. What I would say there is, rather than saying, look, I struggled to get to 1,000, I'm going to give up, or maybe there's a better idea, why not play with the same product but presenting it in different ways, or the same product and taking it to different buyers that might have a different use case, but basically for the same tech? Or instead of, I'm going to ship another feature, why not run another marketing experiment? So what I would say to someone at $1,000 is, well done, that's amazing. That's the really difficult bit, but now get into kind of working out who really needs this and get yourself to like ramen profitability, where you can then dial more and more into more experimentation and different things.
In what ways are you using AI?
It's so much quicker to test ideas, to validate ideas, to share ideas back with customers. We have a situation in which a customer can actually message me going, why can't I do this? As text, and I can send them a wireframe, a clickable wireframe of that within 20 minutes saying, is this what you're thinking of? Now, we're not using AI to actually write code or push that to production, but we are using it in the experimentation to just try things on fast.
What have you, in your experience of people getting testimonials, what are some of the blockers of people? Like, I have a newsletter and it took me a long time to make the ask to get the testimonials.
Yeah.
And I've thought about just doing it as a PS in some, or making a dedicated one. I've thought about just texting a few friends, say in video versus just written. Like, any tips for somebody to ask for testimonials?
Sure. So the number one thing is you do need to actually ask. So a lot of people are just like hesitating, they're uncomfortable. The main thing is to ask at the right time. So that's normally after some sort of signal that they like what you're doing. We automate a testimonial request 24 hours after they move from the free to the paid plan. If they have a good support interaction, so if they reach out to support, their problem is resolved, and they say, this was awesome, you can say, thank you, would you mind leaving a testimonial? When you do that, you need to make really clear that they're giving a testimonial for across the business, not just for the support. Another aspect is asking in a really human way. So sometimes I see people asking and it's kind of an anonymous email from a company, but you want to ask as the person, as the founder, the creator, or whoever. And you also want to share where and when the testimony is going to be used. You give people control over where it's used, they're going to feel more comfortable to actually share. And then another thing, which is pretty basic, but deeply effective, is just to offer some sort of incentive for them to leave it. You're not incentivizing positive feedback. You have to give the reward either way. But what you're going to do is basically say, look, if you leave a video testimonial, we'll give you a month free. And when we implemented that into Senja, what we saw is that we were able to collect video testimonials every single day from customers. And our testimonials are made up of multiple clips. So what we now have is hundreds and hundreds of video clips from customers talking about different aspects of our business, our product, our support, the outcomes they've got. So this is something that we were able to implement and saw an immediate uplift, and Senja now supports sending or thanking customers. The final part of this is to actually thank them. So not just with a gift, but you want to actually say, hey, I really appreciate it. I think if you just ask in a very human way, as I mentioned, you will be able to collect testimonials. Because if you can collect authentic testimonials, you can use them absolutely everywhere to grow your business. It's not just about your landing page. It is about your email list. It is about collecting videos and sharing them on your socials. It can power your whole funnel and can massively increase the amount of revenue that you make. So if you're not doing it and your competitors are out there like faking it, you really need to get over that limiting belief and start teaching customers how they can help grow your business.
Are there any particular resources, whether that's SaaS tools, AI tools, books, communities, that have been impactful for you?
Yeah, so in terms of the tools we use in Senja, we always try and use as few things as possible, but use them very robustly. So that's why I keep talking about linear. It's basically the source of truth for all of the tasks that we're working on, and then we augment that with Notion for the knowledge. But in terms of things that have really supported me, community is a big thing. So I'm a member of Dynamite Circle and also MicroConf. I go to their conferences. And for me, these are probably more important than the tools I use. These are the things that keep me energized. These are the things that make me feel connected. These are the things that basically, after they end the events, you've just got 2 or 3 months where you feel a lot more resilient and supported. I mean, Rob Walling is kind of like a hero of mine. I have a selfie with him, and he wrote the SaaS playbook. I remember I went to a meetup once and I was like, does anyone want to see my selfie with Rob Walling? And I just thought, that's how geeky I am. That's like, it's not a celebrity, but his SaaS playbook really made me feel seen and supported at stages in the business. I would look out for things that are relevant in that moment in time, that just help you feel unblocked and supported. Again, it comes back for me to the emotional side of it. The tactical bit, I can figure that stuff out easily.
Olly, where can people check you out in your business?
Why do I find that funny? That's I think it's like, I'm British and we don't do promo. I think the best, if you want to know everything, just like this, then you want to go on to X, Twitter. It's @HelloIt'sOlly. I'm also on LinkedIn as Olly Meekings, but it's all the same sort of stuff just being shared. So if people want to come along for the journey, that would be cool.
And any final message you want to leave the viewer with, parting some wisdom or humor or whatever you feel is appropriate for a final lesson. Maybe it's a challenge or maybe just a bit of wisdom, whatever you think.
Going back to this concept of knowing yourself, I really implore anyone, especially if they're kind of bootstrapped or indie maker, to spend a little bit of intentional time sat down thinking about who they are in different aspects of their life, what their values are, what's important. I think if you can do that, every single business decision from that point on will become easier. And it can feel a bit wishy-washy. I remember the first time I did it, I thought I was becoming a hippie. And then I did it and I was like, wait a minute. Every single business decision is informed by this thing that I did. I think partly because I'd never done it before, it was such a useful exercise. So if you've never spent that time reflecting on that in an intentional way, documenting it, then I would recommend everyone do that.
Perfect.